You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, episode 14 of season number 4, grading the Cubs offseason. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to this podcast. Follow on all the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. All right, Crawly, it's time to hit Cubs camp up, and there are all kinds of updates on all the latest stories out of Mesa. We got some exciting news this week. His manager, Craig Counsell, announced his opening day starter.
I can only give you one from the top of my head. Cody Petit is going to start.
All right, we're kidding. We're kidding there.
Hilarious.
We are kidding there. Craig Counsell was announcing the spring training opening day starter. Cody Petit, not the actual opening day starter. Here is Craig Counsell on what we all knew was going to happen.
I think that we got to get him there healthy, and then, of course, I think it was a kind of a no-brainer, really, that Shota would be involved in that. So I think, it wasn't really a tough decision. I don't think it was.
It just was so weird that now all of a sudden it's like, oh, of course it was. When last time he was kind of like, when he was asked by the Japanese reporter last time we talked, it was kind of like stumbling and bumbling, and everything that we knew was going to happen. Shota's going to get the ball in game 1 for just that, epic matchup versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And then they announced today that Justin Steele's pitching game 2. We all knew it. It was like you said, it wasn't some big state secret.
Yeah, I don't know why they had to make it into that. I mean, maybe I overreacted to it, but that's what I do to most things when it just seems obvious that you should, do the right thing. I mean, it just,
it was, just one of those things that I think we got used to, like David Ross, who was good with the media. He had good media exposure, and he was on Dancing with the Stars, and he was on ESPN. And before that, we had Joe Madden. I mean, we had some pretty good managers when it comes down to it. As far as Craig Counsell, if you want to talk about the weakest part of just, the entirety of his job, there's a lot that goes into his job. But I'd say the weakest aspect is dealing with the media, in my opinion. He just doesn't have, and that's fine. Not everyone's Joe Madden with the sunglasses on, holding court with the media. They're not all Lou Piniella or Dusty Baker. We've had some really, fun type.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky in the big picture, right? In the big picture, we've been pretty lucky with that. I just don't know what the state secret is. That's
to me, Craig Counsell, he reminds me a lot of Bill Belichick of the Patriots. Remember, where every single question was like a and a roll.
Well, again, here's the difference. Here's the difference. The rings. Okay, yeah. He actually has some. We hear so much about Craig Tember. I'm still waiting for Craig Tober.
No doubt, but it's just that same thing. It doesn't matter. It was like, even if it's something so obvious, every time you ask Brian, if he asked Bill Belichick a question, it was just basically like pulling teeth, rolling eyes. Like, why are you asking me that? It's like, even in that audio clip we played, well, you got to get health. Of course you got to get healthy, and then you're the opening day starter. But you don't have to even go there. Just say, yep, Shota's the opening day starter. It's that simple. And then right. Jed talked a little bit about the simplicity in the decision. And here's what Jed had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think either he and Steele, they both deserve it, so to speak. I think obviously because we're going to be in Japan, it makes total sense to have Shota go in game 1. I think it's going to be awesome, honestly. I think they're starting Yamamoto. We're starting, Shota. I think that you look at that game we played in September, and the fan interest, worldwide fan interest, is going to be off the charts. I think it's an awesome thing just for the game of baseball. Dave Roberts and I were talking about that the other night. Just like, this is great for the game, and what better thing to have those two guys face off in game 1, with Shohei, with Seiya in the lineup, and it's awesome. And I think like I said, baseball is going to benefit from this.
He's absolutely right at all of that, and that's why the answer was so simple. Smacks you right in the face. Shota was 15-3 last season, Dustin, with a 2.91 ERA, was the Cubs' lone all-star representative, and he was part of the first no-hitter at Wrigley Field in 52 years, all while this is happening in his home country. So, of course, he's going to get the start. Now, Dustin, for Cub fans that want to watch this, and I was going to ask you about this here, For Cub fans that do want to watch opening day, it's going to be on Fox Sports. Okay. March 18th, 6 a.m. Eastern time. So that would be 5 a.m. Central time, and also 5 a.m. the next day on March 19th on FS1. So Dustin, does that mean you get the morning off? I mean,
no shot. There will be a special announcement about something very cool that we are doing for the March 18th game. And then the March 19th game. I mean, I will not be doing my pregame show. I don't think, because we will be in our regular pregame, unless I'm the pregame to the pregame of Cubs baseball with Zach. But I know we will then be coming on after. But I mean, we may be doing shows from like 9:30 to 9:45. I mean, seriously, we might be doing, but no, it won't be off days. But there will be an announcement coming on Mully and Haw about some fun things happening at the station with the show on the 18th. Nothing out of the ordinary, though, on the 19th.
Yeah, and like I said, this whole thing is really cool. And what I love about it is that they asked Shota Imanaga about it, and he was really kind of quick to thank like all the Japanese players that came before him, whether you're talking about, Yu Darvish, or whether you're talking about Kosuke Fukudome, or any of the Japanese players that came before that. Now you have this opportunity where you have two Japanese starters on the biggest stage. It's really going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it. But, a lot of people, Dustin, when we take a look at the off season, we have the first spring training game tomorrow. And so you don't think that there's probably going to be too many more big moves left. Maybe you get a backup center fielder, maybe something minor. But this is kind of pretty much it. We talked about how most of the Athletics top 40 free agents are all signed except for two that are like in the bottom half of in the late 30s. And so the Athletic every year issues grades for all 30 teams. And this is what the Athletic had to say about the Cubs. Quote, Chicago made its most aggressive move in years by picking up Kyle Tucker from the Astros, probably the second best player to change teams this winter. Plugging a healthy Tucker into Cody Bellinger's old spot in the lineup is an upgrade that should push the Cubs beyond the 83-win plateau and towards the top of the NL Central. Another trade with Houston for Ryan Presley helps the back end of the bullpen, and outright A is within reach with maybe one more significant move. The Cubs were in on Alex Bregman late in the winter, and after coming up short, there's still cash on hand to use. A homecoming for Dylan Cease, a veteran bat to add to the lineup mix, or a bolstering of the bullpen are on the table, which could lift Chicago into serious contention in the National League as a whole. Now, it goes on to mention the acquisitions this offseason. Outfielder Kyle Tucker, left-handed pitcher Matt Boyd to a 2-year deal. Ryan Presley, we talked about. Right-handed pitcher Eli Morgan, catcher Carson Kelly, Justin Turner, who we're going to talk about in a minute, left-handed pitcher Caleb Thielbar, and right-handed pitcher Ryan Brazier, and right-handed pitcher Colin Ray, third baseman John Birdie, right-handed pitcher Cody Poteet, utility infielder Vidal Brujan, and infielder Nicky Lopez. I mean, that is a ton of moves, Dustin.
Yeah, a lot of moves. Yep.
And then when you talk about the subtractions, Cody Bellinger, we'll wait and see how that works. I think even if he has a good season, you can't compare it because of the lineup he's going to be in and the park he's going to be hitting in, which is perfect for left-handed hitters. Maybe he has a great year. I don't know. Kyle Hendricks. I love Kyle Hendricks as a player and the human being, but the best of his career's over. Mike Tauchman, good for spot starts. Okay. Jorge Lopez.
I am curious on the Tauchman front. I am curious to see what he's like as an everyday guy. I mean, again, pressure different on the south side of town versus the north side of town, but I am curious to see Tauchman as an everyday guy.
When you see him every day, they figure him out quickly. It's not going to be as good as when he just gets those little bursts of starts and can go on a run for if he can get hot for like a week or two. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not going to work over 150. They lost Jorge Lopez to the Nationals. Isaac Paredes was involved in the trade. Hayden Wisniewski. So no big deal. Jim Bowden of The Athletic also gave out offseason awards, and the Cubs were recognized for the best trade for one team, obviously the Kyle Tucker trade. And Bowden said the front office improved its bullpen depth the most. So, I mean, those are pretty accurate statements. And I wouldn't disagree with any of that. Would you?
No, it all makes sense. Checks all the boxes. Nothing to get excited about for me.
I would easily leave it as a B. In case you were wondering, Dustin, how the rest of the NL fared on their report cards, the Reds also had a B, like the Cubs. The Pirates got a C. They were disappointed they didn't do more, especially when you have.
Well, you got to do something when you got Paul Skeens. I mean, you got to make a move, right? You got to make a move.
The Brewers made a few trades, but no free agents. They got a D, and the Cardinals got a big fat F, not adding any players to their roster. Really, it's just it's remarkable about how. The Cardinals were always, their front office was just always the envy of baseball. Now you're looking and you're like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's kind of head scratching. There's no doubt about that.
Now, maybe the Cubs were going for a B+ because after the report card came out, they added a couple more depth pieces to the roster. We know that the Cubs' interest in Justin Turner was reported a few weeks ago by Bob Nightingale as an alternative if they couldn't land Alex Bregman. Well, they didn't land him. So Justin Turner signs a 1-year, $6 million deal. I was listening, to Mully and Haw this morning, and I kind of got a laugh when you were talking about bringing Coomer out to play third base. Morosi wrote that Turner turned down a more lucrative offer elsewhere because he wanted to be a Cub.
Any guess where? Any just stab in the dark? Any idea where that might have been?
I don't know. And I don't know how much more he was getting than $6 million. It was Eric Karros that I remember saying that everyone should play for the Cubs once in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I can understand and that was Bregman too. He, Detroit had the longest deal and, it was right in the range that he roughly wanted it in, but he was, it was down to the Cubs in Boston as far as, those type of being able to play for those franchises. But when I look at this, the front office was excited. Players were excited. Everybody was, saying the right things as far as how excited they were. We definitely have some talk. I think this is Jed or Craig Counsell talking about depth at first base.
In the organization, first base is a place where, not I shouldn't say in the organization, just major league ready and major league kind of capable. It's just shallow. We're just shallow depth wise there. So it's a position of need, and so it's probably as you look around the kind of like depth charts, so to speak, at the major league level, it's probably the greatest area of need.
So obviously Matt Mervis was traded in the Vidal Brujan trade, but. Yeah, Justin Turner is going to play first base. He's going to be playing very little third base. And depth-wise, it seems to be a good move. We talked on the last show about Alexander Canario was taking reps, but he's not in every, he's transitioning.
Not ready yet. He needs more reps. If anything, you have him do that stuff at the minors.
Dustin, I don't know if there's room. To me, there still has to be a corresponding move. And so what that is, I don't know, but it wouldn't shock me the next time you and I talk if Alexander Canario is traded for cash considerations. That's
wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, where are you going to put him in AAA? You got Kevin Alcantara, you got Owen Casey. They're solid there. I just don't see an opening for him right now. And so that's kind of where I'm at. One thing Jed Hoyer talked about was what Justin Turner does bring to this team.
You always want to have, guys that, taking the biggest at-bats in the game and can keep a slow heartbeat and can, potentially, teach young guys some of those skills, I think is always really important. You always want those guys in your clubhouse.
We talked about Tommy LaStella was nicknamed by Joe Madden 3 a.m., joking around. He could fall out of bed at 3 a.m. and still get a base hit, right? Mm-hmm. The Cubs did not. Alexander Canario is not that guy. Like I said, he's not a pinch hitter. Do you have someone that can come off? This is what Mike Tauchman did give you. You're talking about.
Well, I think Justin Turner can be that guy.
Exactly.
Yes, so he's that guy, and he brings pop.
Right. With Mike Tauchman, he was a guy that even if he didn't play for a week, he may strike out, but he would give you a 9, 10, 11, 12 pitch at bat. He would give you a competitive at bat.
Right. And Justin Turner doesn't strike out.
Right. And so
he doesn't strike out.
It's a move that makes sense. It works. like I said, and you wonder if he could maybe mentor Matt Shaw at third. Obviously, he doesn't have the skills.
Seems the kind of guy that would be willing to do that from afar, right?
Right. And this is what they're talking about, is bringing in guys with championship experience that can slow their heartbeat down in the big game. Dustin, I don't know if you remember this. 2017, the Cubs make it to the NLCS. They beat the Nationals in an unbelievably hard fought series. And the plane had to get detoured on the way over. One day there's going to be a book about the 2016 Cubs, the 2015, 16, 17. And I can't wait to read the chapter about what happened with that landing. I think it was something with Quintana's wife. Either way, they lose game one. They were just absolutely exhausted and tired, and it showed on the field. Game two was a tie game. I want to say bottom of the 11th, 1-1. And Justin Turner was going up against John Lackey, who was coming out of the bullpen.
Yep, we played that clip on the air.
And Tucker hit the second walk-off home run in Dodgers history. The first one was the Kurt Gibson. That was the second walk-off playoff win for the Dodgers, and that was Justin Turner. And I remember that 2017 series. I was there. Oh my God, it was awful watching. I remember watching the Dodgers absolutely crush the Cubs in that final game, and just sitting there watching them celebrate on the field was awful. But Justin Turner was a big part of that team. He's not that player, but he can still give you professional at bats. He can still give you, be a pinch hitter that can be useful. The Cubs also signed former White Sox pitcher Chris Flexen to a minor league contract. He was 3-15 with a 4.95 ERA in 33 games. But Dustin, I'm not going to sit there and look at anyone that was on that White Sox. That White Sox team was bad up and down, as far as hitting, as far as the bullpen. There was nothing good about that team. I don't think
camp arm. This guy's a camp arm. He's protection if somebody gets hurt. He's a camp arm.
He pitched 160 innings last season. He's an inning eater, or as Craig likes to call him, an out getter. And so it's just a depth piece that, like you said, in case of emergency, grab Chris Flexen. But, I just don't know if there's any more big moves. I don't think, I heard that the Padres, again, were looking possibly at Jose Quintana. They keep saying they're not interested in getting rid of Dylan Cease. I still wonder. I'd
be shocked if something big happened at this point.
It's not out of the realm of possibility, and it's not like Cease is sitting out, right? He's at a camp and he's getting his work in. And so it's not like it would be like, somebody just coming off, like someone that's coming in late to camp. I think it would work. It's just a question of how serious are the Padres about cutting payroll, because if you can get Jose Quintana cheap and then get rid of Dylan Cease, you could save yourselves a lot of money. We'll see what happens. But that's why right now I would say the grade is a B. There are moves that I wish the Cubs would have made. And now, when you talk about it, I was okay with getting rid of Cody Bellinger because I said to myself, where's he going to play? Okay. And then you take the $25 million he was owed and spend it. And I feel like the Cubs didn't do as good of a job spending. They got good players, but they could have gotten better ones for a little bit more money. They got Ryan Brasier. He's really good, or Ryan Presley, but you could have gotten Tanner Scott. You could have gotten Presley and Tanner Scott. That 1-2 combination would have been something else.
They got no A's. They got some B's and C's. That's what they got.
Right. And you could have gotten Alex Bregman. You could have gone there and done some deferred money. I don't know about
easily gotten Bregman. The other thing, we had the interview with the reporter from The Athletic yesterday on the Mully and Haw show, who had the story about Theo's role in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Other really important thing when you listen to these interviews is that Bregman's wife is pregnant and is enrolled at Harvard. Do you know where Harvard's at?
Yeah,
Boston area, right? So I'm just there are other aspects of this, right? It's $10 million more helps, but as we all know, happy wife, happy life.
Not only that, Justin Turner, and when you're talking about where were the other offers, his wife is from Indiana.
She's got some Indiana ties, right? Correct. So there are those things do come into play, and you have to keep that in mind when you're dealing with free agency. Going back to the shortstops. Right? When we had the great offseason of shortstops, okay? Who was the shortstop now with the Philadelphia Phillies? His wife is from that area and wanted to stay east and wanted to remain having the spring training, right? She wanted to have spring training in Florida
That was Trey Turner. And then don't forget that Dansby Swanson's wife played for the Chicago Fire.
Oh, see, I'm just saying, look at all the dots we're connecting in this. Okay. We're not making this stuff up. We're not throwing darts here. There is something to this. So this is not always this. I mean, I feel like I'm carrying water for the Ricketts. I can't believe I'm doing that. But boy, does Kenny Rosenthal and now Buster Olney jumps in. I mean, are they just not getting enough information out of Clark and Addison? So now they're gonna throw darts. It's just ridiculous.
We'll get there in segment 3, but there definitely is questions that need to be asked. I'll tell you that much.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. Don't forget to leave us one of the 5-star reviews. This is episode 14. It is season number 4, and this is all about grading the Cubs off season. In this segment of the show, with spring training games starting up, Crawly talks to the voice of Sloan Park, Tim Sheridan, who's been the PA announcer for the Cubs spring training games for over 40 years, about the spring training experience and what he's noticed so far about this year's Cubs team in camp.
Ladies and gentlemen, it just would not be spring training the night before the first spring training game of the season if we did not have Tim Sheridan, the voice of Sloan Park, here with us. Tim, how you doing, buddy?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Glad to be here.
Now, Tim, for those people that have not seen you on the podcast or heard you on the podcast, and you've done other podcasts as well, can you give our listeners just a little bit of an idea of how you got into being the voice of spring training for the Cubs?
Very simple story. I was actually in a class at Mesa Community College. They came in. It was a broadcasting class. Someone came in, said, does anyone want to help out at Cubs spring training? And my hand was up that quick, and that is literally how it happened.
And now it's been about, 42 years?
This is my 42nd straight season. Yes, my friend.
42 years. And, as we're kind of getting ready and we've been watching all these videos there, to me, I kind of think about, when you probably first started at old Hohokam Park, just the complete difference when you compare what spring training used to be, 20 years ago, and then seeing what it is now with the media, with people now just having their own cell phones and being to broadcast live from Sloan, batting practices and BP and all these pitching drills and everything. It's just got to be kind of surreal for you.
It is surreal because I will be honest. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was at Sloan as usual, as I happened to be, and everybody, everywhere I looked, there was a cell phone recording, there was a camera down, here, there, all outside the fence. But you actually can be so close to the action that everybody's probably taking pretty damn good video, if you ask me, or photos, whatever they're doing. But it just made my mind think back to not too long ago when none of this was possible, and essentially I was like the oddball back in say late 80s, early 90s, when I actually had a home video camera with me and brought it up into the press box with me. Nobody else had, was bringing a home video. It was literally either the TV stations who came out, and they were far and few between because it was spring training. Remember, the games don't matter. Nobody cares. And now it's like it's another world. It's crazy.
Speaking of the late 80s and early 90s, I'm sure, Tim, you saw this picture the other day. Sean Dunston, Mark Grace, Rhino, Sut, and of course, Berge. But, for four out of those 5 Cubs Hall of Famers, you saw them when they were pretty much young pups for the most part.
Oh, exactly. 1984, that was my first spring. So that takes us back to quite an amazing season in itself. But so to be there in the start of that, and I was lucky enough, there's a Northside baseball camp that is kind of picking up where the Hunley camp took kind of left because COVID and everything kind of messed things up for a bit there. Anyhow, I was down in Tucson and I got a chance to talk in depth with Sean Dunston, and I hadn't seen him in ages, and it was just such a pleasure. And I talked to him about announcing him and Gracie and Sandberg back in the day, and he's like, I got to hear that. Come on. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember. That's like so cool. Because, sometimes it's either, it's a sound, it's a voice that can take you back down memory lane, but it's also like the smell. When I first got to the old Holcomb Stadium, speaking of, yesteryear in spring training, that would be 2 stadiums ago. There's Sloan, and then there was Holcomb, which the A's play at now, even though they kind of redid that. But then the one that was torn down before that, after the 96 spring, I would get there, and every spring, and that press box was situated right above the main concession stand. So all of the aromas from like the hot dogs and the popcorn and everything would just like waft straight up, when it was actually wide open, because there was only a fence on the back of the press box and nothing going out front, no glass booths or anything. So it was literally like open to the elements, but I could just smell that every spring. I'm like, I'm back, I'm here, so that brings me back, way back.
And I got to tell you, just watching a lot of the pictures and videos of people taken of Sutcliffe and Sandberg and those, and even Sutcliffe Sutcliffe's been coming out for years.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Just helping the young guys. I just love to see that knowledge passed down from generation to generation of ball players. And I don't know. I mean, to me, like sometimes when I still see Rhino or Dunston, I'm like, hey, I bet they could still play, right?
Well, exactly. And, I think you probably heard and read that, Rhino being around has kind of been like a real boost. He's been battling, health problems for, the last while. And everyone's been kind of pulling for him in Cubs world. And to see him out there and kind of, giving that energy, I think even the young players, they may not have seen him, but they've heard about the name. And, so I think it's a really cool thing to see those guys there. And Fergie, Fergie just keeps on going, man. I love that guy.
And I don't know if you saw this story by Andy Martinez, but Miguel Amaya actually brought a Sandberg jersey to get autographed, not knowing that he was going to be there, but just in case. So, you love to see the young people kind of respecting, the guys that came before them. And it's really awesome. And so as we kind of get ready for the game tomorrow, for people that have not been to Sloan Park, what kind of advice or what kind of tips would you give our first timers that are coming out to spring training?
Well, in just the first tip about the game tomorrow is don't go to Sloan Park because it's at Camelback Ranch against the Dodgers. And then Friday is back at Sloan against the Dodgers. So it's the 1-2, which is interesting because they're going to open up 1-2 in Japan, in a few more weeks. So, but tips going out to Sloan Park, it's like the usual things you think of when you want to go to a ball game. It's like, get there a little earlier than you think because traffic is not great. But once you get past that barrier, that's kind of a big thing. But they have tailgating and all that kind of stuff at Sloan Park, which is nice. And the weather right now is just turning like perfect. I think it's like 76, 78 and sunshine today. We're looking at similar 78, 80 right down through the next couple weeks. And so at least a 10-day anyhow. So that's exciting. Yeah, if you want to get autographs and stuff, get there early, get there when they let you in, which is, I think it's 11:30 for a 105 game, and most of our games are 105. So go down by the third base line, the Cubs side of the dugout, if you want to get some autographs and kind of hang there. The players come in and out when they're practicing before the game gets going, but you got to get there early. Otherwise, they're going to move you out as it gets close to game time for the people who actually have tickets there, but they'll let you try for a while. Sometimes they're doing batting practice in the main stadium. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're doing batting practice right outside. They have another field that's just between the Cubs like locker room and facility because they have to walk from there to the stadium, which they did purposefully so that, people could interact with the players as they come to the stadium. So that's another place where you'd want to be because they have to go through a path. If you want to interact with them at all, or maybe catch an autograph, a photograph, that's the place to be. So those are just a few little things off the top.
Absolutely. And don't forget to stop by the Club 400 tent and get yourself some old style and some JP's pizza. That's always a blast. And when when we think about this Japan thing, this Japan trip, the Tokyo series, it does bring me back to the early, to the aughts, the 2000, when the Mets played the Cubs in Japan as well. And Sammy Sosa was part of the team. And obviously you covered many spring trainings when Sammy Sosa would be there. What was your take on kind of the reunion between the Cubs organization and Sammy Sosa?
Well, I just thought it was long overdue personally. I actually put together like a little documentary video of this Cub Talks video series that I had on. I called it Long Gone Sammy, I think it was. And because they had that documentary, like Long Gone Summer, I think, with him and McGuire documenting that home run chase of '98. And so I kind of did a little mini doc similarly. And basically, I felt, and I said this off the top, that, bury the hatchet. I mean, this guy was everything for a while. And I know there's the steroid issue, and maybe he didn't come completely clean, but it is what it is. I think it's like we're so far down past that we can get past these things. And it's like Sammy Sosa was a huge part of the Cubs organization for quite a while. And in fact, after that, the strike situation that happened in mid-'90s there, it really took something to bring baseball back. It wasn't the same. I could see that in the spring trainings after that, actually going back to, I think it was the spring of '95. A very interesting spring training for me because the Cubs said basically, we're going to, the players are still locked out. We're going to have a replacement player season in spring and start that way. So essentially I had to, would be like cross a picket line to say that I'm going to announce that. But, I was just a younger guy. And if I had said, no, I'm not going to do that, well, it'd be, well, bye, so I did. And we had like a handful of replacement games, which was weird because you didn't know any of these guys at the time, or very few. And then they got things settled and there was a break in between. And then they came back and had abbreviated spring. So I got to announce 2 Cubs spring trainings, very different spring trainings in that year. But getting back to that, Major League Baseball needed that in '98, in my opinion. And I think they looked the other way when steroid was happening. So, let's move on. It's 2025 for crying out loud,
Right. And when we think about that '98 season, we just yesterday was the anniversary of the passing of Harry Carey. Now, I got to tell you, I do have a lot of memorabilia here in my Cubs cave, but I do have a special place for this card right here. It is number 42 out of 400, a Tim Sheridan 40th anniversary card. And then when you flip this guy over right here, you can take a look. There you are with Harry Carey. And, I think about, it didn't matter when it was. Harry was one of those guys similar to you and me, Tim, that just sit there and wait for baseball to start again. Like, revived by baseball starting again. What are some of your favorite memories of Harry Carey at Hohokam?
Oh my God. Harry was, I just felt, being a young guy coming in there in the beginning in '84, and Harry'd only come over to the Cubs like 2 years later. I think it was '82 when he came in with the Cubs. So he was more of an icon elsewhere, all those years with the Cardinals and stuff. So it's odd to think that he could, work his way through Oakland and the White Sox and then become this Cubs, icon that he became. But so he's relatively new, but at the same time, WGN was exploding. And so I could tell there was an aura about him that people kind of gravitated towards him. And the fact that he was doing the singing of the 7th inning stretch with Take Me Out to the Ball Game, that was a big deal. And the fans loved that. And that was my kind of claim to fame, because at the old Hohokam with the rudimentary audio system we had, he wasn't patched in with his microphone. So I would introduce him and he would come over and I would hand him my PA mic for him to sing the 7th inning stretch. I think I did that maybe over the course of like 13 years when that stadium we were together, about 100 times, because he would show up at games. even when he wasn't working, and be drinking a beer in the stands. You're just being a fan. So that's Harry. Yeah.
Yeah, it cracks me up. Another guy that I think really kind of embodied the spirit of spring training was Ron Santo. And you talked about how at Hohokam, like, the fans were right up against the booth where you guys were doing the PA and when they were broadcasting the games. And, one of the great things, Pat Hughes has put out a series called Voices of the Game, and he has one about Ron Santo. I think, I'm going with this one, but there's one time where Pat cannot see the game because someone's standing up in his view, and he basically turns over play-by-play to Ron Santo. He said, all right, Ronnie, you're going to be doing play-by-play. And you hear Santo off mic shouting, can you please sit down? But just kind of the thoughts of those games happening, and in between innings, people handing balls and stuff to get signed by Ron Santo. Just like I said, there are certain people, and definitely Tim, you're one of them, just kind of embody the spirit of what spring training is all about, which is just getting out of the cold, getting into the sun of Arizona, sitting back and just enjoying baseball and having fun. The outcomes of the game don't matter. You'd rather win than lose, no doubt about it. But it's really about watching baseball, having a good time, and getting ready for the season.
It really is. I say that to people who aren't like big baseball fans. It's like, hey, come on out to spring training just to enjoy a fantastic day at the park. You literally can come out, and even if you're not like focused and glued in on the baseball, which is okay because a lot of people even at Wrigley Field aren't, so you can have a beer, you can people watch. And here in Arizona, we're talking like 75, 80 degrees and sunshine when it's, probably pretty cold most days, at least like right around now up in the Midwest. So and then every seat's a great seat. It's an intimate environment. We have, we do have the biggest stadium at Sloan Park. We get over 16,000 in there when we sell it out, which is pretty incredible. We're far larger than any other team's ballpark in spring training. Like the Yankees, I think they only seat like 11,000 there. So when the Cubs are the first team that broke 100,000 fans to a spring training home season. And I think that was like maybe 84, 85, right in that era. They were the first team that broke 200,000 fans to a home. And then at Sloan Park, they went over 250,000 fans in a spring home season, which is really incredible when you think about it. It's only like, 15 to 18 games. So it's just, there's something special about the environment because like Chicago rules apply. If a home run's hit, most of the time, unless like it's, some other team's fan, it's thrown back. That's what you do. So, it's got the kind of the light standards that kind of mimic Wrigley. It's got a real Wrigleyville West vibe. And it's just, the scores don't matter. You get to see the young stars who may be stars 4 years from now, and the veterans, the stars. So I think it's like some of the best baseball you can watch. And in Arizona, we actually have the most professional baseball facilities in one area in the entire country here with all the different spring training sites and that. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and one thing that you said that really rings true. Number one, it does feel like you're in Wrigley Field, but like an intimate version of Wrigley Field. And Wrigley Field is intimate in and of itself, but it's like, even though it's the biggest ballpark in spring training, I've been to a lot of different ballparks out there, and it just has a totally different vibe. It literally is almost like you said, you don't even have to like baseball to go there and just kind of enjoy it. And the food is fantastic. The food trucks, like all this stuff, like it's just, to me, it's like a slice of heaven. And especially if you need a break from, like, we've been in like negative 20-degree wind chills out here the last couple of days. And it's just like, oh my God, I would just anything to just sit there and just go out and just enjoy it. And it's a blast. Tim, you have just started a new podcast that kind of combines a couple different your loves. Why don't you do me a favor and tell our listeners a little bit about what you got cooking?
Well, it's not actually a podcast. It's actually a tour, which is why I was a little late getting to you today, because I thought we were 1 more hour difference, but that happens when daylight savings time happens in, I don't know, another 4 weeks or whatever it is. I'm doing a brewery and baseball tour, combining two of my all-time favorite things. And what we're doing is we're taking groups of people. I like to keep it small, which I think is great because you have more of a personal connection than, something that's too many people and unwieldy. So basically, it's kind of like 6 people or less, but it depends. I would go up to 8, but that's it. And we go to 3 different breweries, and we go around to different baseball sites, and I kind of do a little bit of a narration of what they're seeing, where we're going, and we do the same thing at the breweries because they're unique and they're local here too. So I love that. And while we're at the breweries, we can talk baseball, talk beer, do these kinds of things. And I have a treasure trove on my tablet that, when I'm telling stories and stuff, I can play videos and show photos and kind of tell these stories of the history of Cactus League and Arizona baseball and these kinds of things. And then work right into the modern times of the Cubs and, what we've had in 2016 and the World Series and that. So it's just one of those things where it's like the 2 things that I really love. I'm like, hey, I haven't heard of it before, but baseball and beer, that's the perfect double play. That's my slogan. So, so yeah, if you're out here and you want to go on a beer and baseball kind of tour, brewery and baseball tour, Sheridan's Brewery and Baseball Tour. You can find it on Facebook just by that name, and then online. So this is all just gotten going within the last week and a half. We're doing the tours as of this week. So it's about 2 tours a week. Starts at 3:00, goes till 7 because we need light so people can see the stuff. But yeah.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And so what we'll do is after we're done recording, when this gets released tomorrow, we'll make sure to get a good link so that people can go and find it. But Tim, where can they find you on the socials? Because I know you're already posting some things out there in spring training. Where can they find you on the socials?
Yeah, same thing. Which, I've got the Boys of Spring website where you can kind of find out. I'm always doing some different things there, but you can find out a lot of what's going on from that. Then from there, I have the Twitter, X, but that's there, so you can connect up on Facebook. And like I say, I got the Sheridan's Brewery and Baseball Facebook page, so that's out there. So and the YouTube, almost all my videos, which goes back to a ton. I had the first video posted on YouTube of Ryan Dempster doing his Harry Carey impersonation. Speaking of, Harry Carey. And so that was the first one posted only weeks after YouTube started. So it's the very first one. And of course, Ryan Dempster's Harry Carey impersonation is a lot like Will Ferrell's Harry Carey impersonation, but I digress.
100% agree, Tim, and I appreciate you jumping on. And again, hopefully, like I said, everyone checks out your ballpark and brewery tours. That sounds like a lot of fun. And Tim, what I love about you is you never stop with the ideas. They're always coming. They're flowing from you, man. And
I can't help it. It's what I do.
you are an icon of Mesa, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to jump on today.
Hey, my pleasure. One last thing. I think I'm actually spinning towards about the middle of March. I'm going to do an auditorium type of thing that's going to be the history of Cactus League spring training and more, which the and more part is what you really want to know. And it's going to be a very kind of immersive video and audio kind of thing, something that's different from just having a person standing up and, talking to them. It'd be like an immersive experience. So look for that too, which you'll find out more information about that as we go.
All right. I love it. And you have a great game tomorrow, Tim.
Thank
the
you,
first game is Saturday.
I'll watch them have a good game tomorrow, and then I'll hopefully announce a great game on Friday when we get the Dodgers over at Sloan and, beat the crap out of them because, hey, if you're playing a game, you might as well win, even if it doesn't count, right?
Absolutely. Take care, Tim.
Adios, my friend.
This is season 4, episode 14 of the Fly the W podcast, grading the Cubs off season. Please do us a favor, leave a 5-star review, and don't forget to subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. And of course, we're on all the social media platforms out there. All right, Crawly, time to go around the bases. giving the listeners, the podcasters, the subscribers, the latest Cubs info and other news from around the league. And Rob Manfred was out in Arizona talking about Cubs baseball, among other things.
Yep, Rob Manfred held his yearly Cactus League Media Day appearance in Arizona. And, it was weird because there was 3 topics that as both a baseball fan and a Cub fan interested me. And they're all kind of, in a way, weaved together and connected. I'll kind of tell you what I'm talking about. Obviously, the biggest elephant in the room is how a new collective bargaining agreement would work. If you remember, after the last CBA, after the 2021 season, the owners and players could not come to an agreement on a new one, and there was a lockout that lasted for 3 months, shortening spring training and pushing opening day to a week later. Now, that agreement expires after the 2026. And Dustin, the issues that will be on the table this next collective bargaining agreement are going to be, it's going to be even more contentious than last time. But here's what Manfred had to tap dance around with the CBA.
Look, again, I'm not going to speculate about what we're going to propose, what we're going to try to negotiate with the MLBPA. We're a year away. I owe it to the owners to give them an opportunity to coalesce around a bargaining approach. And quite frankly, I owe it to our fans not to get into all this too early. I mean, it's bad enough when you're doing it and bargaining and everybody's worried about it. We're just not there yet.
All right. Well,
not an alarmist.
You may want to get a jump on it, Dustin, just because, one of the biggest changes is the shift in the media market. Bally Sports had to file bankruptcy and cut ties with MLB teams. The money made on streaming is nowhere near what it was during the height of the RSNs, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be just a huge issue in how baseball kind of navigates this new media world. And part of another issue that's going to be front and center is the discrepancy in spending, right? How some teams they're literally spending, like the Dodgers, boatloads of money and other teams are not. And the question then is, okay, well, what are we going to do about the spending with the Dodgers? And so here's Manfred on that.
Look, I think that the Dodgers have gone out and done everything possible, always within the rules that currently exist, to put the best possible team on the field. And I think that's a great thing for the game. That type of competitive spirit is what people want to see. By the same token, I said this at the owners' meetings, I'll say it again. It's clear that we have fans in some markets that are concerned about the ability of the team in their market to compete with the financial resources of the Dodgers. And I think if we've been consistent on one point, it is we try to listen to our fans on topics like this. And I have heard people on this, believe me. I get a lot of emails about it.
I mean, again, think about it. If you are a fan of the Oakland A's, is there even a point in following the season, really? Like, do they have any shot?
I mean, I guess not. I mean, there's always a point, but yeah, right. I mean, no shot. No shot.
Right. It's this idea of competitiveness. And so when we talk about this goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the TV money. Okay. The Dodgers RSN deal was the last great deal. And boy, was it a great one. It was agreed upon in 2013, worth $8.35 billion. And that runs through 2039, Dustin. So the Dodgers have a leg up when it comes to other teams because of the amount that they can spend. And so you have these different tiers of teams where you have guys, on the top tier, you have the Dodgers and the Yankees making a fortune off their RSNs. The Cubs are doing okay, a couple other teams. And then you have there's a lot of teams that when Diamonds Bally's, when they went bankrupt belly up, MLB had to step in. So they're not getting that money that other teams are. And so if you're one of those teams that can't really spend and you're not, it's just not fun when your team's not involved in the offseason, when you're not making any moves at all. We've been through it, Dustin. It's not fun. It's not exciting.
No, totally. Listen, I can't disagree with anything you just said, Crawly. That's not fun. That's not exciting.
and I hate to agree with Rob Manfred, but I mean, on anything, but think about it. The Dodgers are sitting there saying, how do we put the best product on the field? What are ways? What are loopholes? If you remember, that was Theo's thing. Theo was the king of finding the loopholes in the contracts to getting, okay, how do we get number
the
one
international market, right?
All that stuff. It's you find whatever way you can, whatever competitive advantage you can to put the best product on the field. You don't sit there and say, well, we'll take the second best closer just because the first best closer is a little bit more than. Does that inspire confidence? That's why people, and we're going to talk about it next, but that's why people are frustrated with Tom Ricketts and the ownership group, is because they don't, again, you don't want to be like, oh, well, we can take this. It's almost as good. It's kind of there. No, you want to see your team go for it. And so if you're the Mets, if you're the Yankees, I'm fine with it. If you're going to strike out, you're not going to hit home runs every time. But every time, if we're sitting there and we're looking at the price tags on everything, it's like when you go to a nice steakhouse or a nice vacation with your wife. Sometimes you got to say, you know what? Don't look at the menu. Just order what you want. You know? And that's just, is it going to be painful later on when we get the bill? Yeah. But you know what? It's worth it. We're going to have some fun, etc. This right now, the Cubs, when they went all in, and this is what we're about to talk about with Tom Ricketts and national media. When you play poker, Dustin, and you get to a certain point, it's what is called pot committed. Okay. Mm-hmm. You've already spent enough money. Now at this point, you might as well just go all in, because if you fold, or if you don't go all in, now all of a sudden you're going to sit there and lose a lot of money for nothing. Okay. The Cubs, to me, when they made that move for Justin Turner, that made the baseball world stand up and notice. That was a huge deal, Dustin. But they've never really followed up with anything else that kind of just blows your mind. And so if you only have a 1-year competitive window to try to do the best you can, why wouldn't you get Tanner Scott if you save $25 million on Cody Bellinger? Why wouldn't
you? Did they not read the room right? I mean, is that part of the problem? They thought they might have had the best offer on the table, and they didn't have the best offer on the table. Is that part of the problem?
Are you telling me that whatever agent got an offer from the Dodgers and didn't take it back to the Cubs? Because every negotiation I know of,
I just wonder if he just said, if he had last and final, and he just said, you know what, all right, let's just go to the Dodgers. Maybe he wanted to go to the Dodgers. Maybe he wanted to go to the team that he thought had a better chance to play in October.
I think if Tanner Scott was on this team, I would like to put together a team that's going to win in October. Make that be a selling point of ownership. We are committed to winning. That's what gets you great players. And so when we talk about Tom Ricketts offseason, from his breaking even comment to a kid asking him why he was the cheapest owner at CubsCon, he's also
that still bothers me.
He is taking a pounding from the national media. You brought it up, but Dustin, it's not just, I know your favorite, Ken Rosenthal. It's not just Ken though. It's John Heyman, Jeff Passan, Bob Nightingale, and now it's Buster Olney is the latest one. And he criticizes the Cubs because they were outspent by the Tampa Bay Rays this offseason. Now, yes, the Cubs.
Okay, they were outspent, but the Cubs still have a far superior payroll than them. I mean, come on. We can create the numbers to make them any way we want them to make it good for what we're trying to get across, right?
Well, let's look at this here, right? Is that when you're talking about that, he says he's talking about the Cubs' payroll is significantly lower than last year by nearly $30 million, Dustin. And so that here is the tough part. Yes. So the Cubs payroll is 185. The Rays is 72. But you're talking about a major market team versus one of the teams that has one of the worst stadiums, one of the worst TV deals, one of the worst as far as fans actually showing up. Like it's like the old 70s days of the White Sox with Harry Carey and Jimmy Pearsall, where you could count the number of people in the seats. So you should be doing more than the Rays. And again, if you're going all in, why are you spending $30 million less than you did last year? Why are you okay being 12th or 14th in payroll, but second or third in revenue? That's what people are upset about.
I get it.
And so if you're going to sit there and make tone deaf comments like you're barely breaking even, or if you're going to sit there and oh, well, we kind of fell short on this guy. We fell short on that guy. It's not going to sit well. And again, if all of a sudden you sit there and you walk and you watch and you see Kyle Tucker walk, wait, if you think this was a bad offseason for ownership, trust me, if Tucker walks next year, especially if he has the year that everyone anticipates him having, I don't know about you, Dustin. I'm watching a lot of spring training.
Are you going to dump? Are you willing to dump? Are you willing to dump your Cubs season tickets over it?
Dustin, I'm a huckleberry. There's no way I could ever do that.
Okay. Well, then, guess what? Then you can bitch and moan all you want because you put your hard-earned money into it. But I'm just saying, until season ticket holders dump and people don't pick them up, what's Ricketts' motivation?
I get that, but again, people have done that over at the South Side. Does it improve things?
No, because their owner doesn't care.
Right. Well, that's what I'm just saying is these guys are,
and now there are people in this industry. There are people in this industry calling him Little Tommy Reinsdorf.
Ooh, ouch. That is an insult.
Okay?
I haven't heard that.
Little Tommy Reinsdorf, because he's been listening at these meetings, at these symposiums about how just be close enough, just keep the people interested and see the till fill. Okay, Little Tommy Reinsdorf, as he's being nicknamed. I don't like it, but that's what we're hearing.
Well, from unhappy owners to unhappy players, and all of them have ties with the Cubs. We talked about the Cubs' underwhelming offer for Alex Bregman, who ultimately chose to sign with the Red Sox. But guess what, Dustin? No one asked current Red Sox third baseman Rafael Devers what he thought about the deal. So Devers...
No, he thought this way. He thought no.
Right. Devers is on a 10-year deal worth over $300 million, and nobody in their front office thought it would be a good idea to ask him, hey, would you mind being a DH? Because former GM of the Red Sox, Chaim Bloom, said, oh, yeah, you're our third baseman of the future. Well, he's gone now. And the new guy's saying, hey, no, you're not. We want you to be DH. And now Bregman's walking into camp in this very uncomfortable situation. He's saying he's willing to move to second base. What a mess. I feel terrible for the Red Sox, huh? How about Nolan Arenado coming to camp?
Yeah, how about this? This is interesting. This is part of why the Cardinals got that big fat F that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, they tried desperately to deal him in 3 years that are left on his 8-year, $260 million contract. And the Cubs wouldn't like this. The money is deferred until 2041, Dustin. He has a no-trade clause.
They're not doing that.
He has a no-trade clause and already refused a trade to Houston where he would have been Bregman's replacement. But Patrick Mooney did say that the Cubs did kick the tires a little bit, but that the Cardinals have no plans to trade the all-star third baseman to their biggest rival in the NL Central. I don't know why you wouldn't. Why would you care if you're the Cardinals?
Especially if he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
And they don't want to pay him. Okay.
It makes no, it's not like, honestly, he's on the downside of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he might help the Cubs for a year, but it's not like it's not like you're trading him in his prime.
No.
I don't know why the Cardinals are like that desperate to hold on to him. But one last player who may be a little bit unhappy, and it has been tied to the Cubs in the past. How about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Entering his final season before hitting free agency. Guerrero and the Blue Jays failed to come to terms on a contract extension by Guerrero's Monday night deadline, paving the way for the 25-year-old All-Star to hit free agency in November. Guerrero said they have their numbers. I have my numbers. They stopped talking, but Dustin, no chance on this one either. He turned down a Toronto offer of $340 million. He said the offer was not even close.
Well, I think I saw David Ortiz, for what it's worth, say that his number would start with a 5 if he has another season like he's had in the past. But here's something to keep in mind, and I think this is a possibility. And maybe it's just how far would you be willing to go? Let's say at the trade deadline, Cubs find themselves where we hope they do, and they're in first place in their division. But they're not good enough to beat the Dodgers. But Vladimir Guerrero, they may believe, could put them over the top. And they're still under the luxury tax threshold, so they could bring in his money and not, be right there at that number potentially. What do you think it would take? What would you be willing to give up for half a year at Vladimir Guerrero if the Cubs were going to go for it?
Well, when you talk about half a year of Vladimir Guerrero, you can't go super crazy for a rental like that. Maybe
I'm saying, I mean, how far, a position player, is it Michael Bush and
I think you would have to give up Michael Bush, which again, you'd lose him. And apparently they believe in him. My guess is they would have to give up a couple of top 10 prospects and Michael Bush.
I mean, where would you draw the line? Michael Bush and Owen Casey? Yes or no?
I wouldn't do that move for half a year.
Okay. I'm just saying, I mean, that could be interesting. And then potentially, the Cubs would have to make a decision, hopefully, on Kyle Tucker or Vlad Guerrero moving forward. Again, that's what's fun about this. There's all kinds of possibilities. Also got some Cubs baseball on the air. 1:55 Friday, Cubs baseball on the score, Cubs Dodgers.
Yes. We've been waiting for that. Chicago Cubs baseball is on the air, right?
It won't be Pat Hughes, though. It won't be Pat Hughes on Friday.
No, Pat waits a little while to get into spring training, and so we've been, for guys like me, I've been waiting for this.
He doesn't need the reps, huh?
You don't need the reps, no. I've been waiting for this since the last game of 2024, and we do know that the very first spring training game is going to be Thursday, February 20th. At 2:05 p.m. Central Time. You're going to find that only on MLB Network. But on Friday, February 21st, like you said, the Cubs versus the Dodgers at Camelback Ranch on Marquee and on 670 The Score. And then on Saturday, it's going to be the Cubs versus the White Sox at 2:05 again on Marquee, not on The Score. And then Sunday versus the Texas Rangers at 2:05 on Marquee and again on The Score. So, Dustin, we finally have some baseball that we can sit down and watch and listen to. And like I said, do you know who's doing the broadcast of the games? Or
Matt Spiegel and Ron Coomer, I believe.
All right, Spiegel and Coomdog. So that'll be fun. And I wonder who else will be doing some games for The Score. But, it's just fun to say, hey, baseball's back and we can actually watch a game. And is there anyone in the game tomorrow, Dustin, that you're like, oh, man, I hope they get the start. I really want to watch.
Well, I also read from our friend Bruce Levine that Michael Bush is the only regular Cub that will be in the lineup tomorrow.
All right. So the only regular Cub in the lineup, so they're going to take it easy. But, hey,
I guess Matt Shaw can't be out there, right, because of the oblique. So we won't have that to kick around either.
Yeah, it's still going to be fun to watch, and again, are they going to put James Triantos in there, or Kevin Alcantara?
Well, somebody's got to play, right? I mean, somebody's got to go take the
There's
at-bats.
Young guys that honestly, Dustin, that's why I like going to spring training earlier than later. I'm going to see the everyday roster when they're in Chicago. I want to see the young guys play. So I love these early spring training games. For me, what can these kids do, and what does the future look like?
All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and, of course, X. Email us, flythew670gmail.com, and watch us by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games, and we'll be back early next week to give a little bit of a wrap-up. We're only about 18 days away from the Cubs heading east to Japan. So they got a lot of work to get done between now and then.
All I can say, Dustin, is baseball is back. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!